Your practice software is putting you at risk. My name is Tom Rolley for Graduate Medicine. It's New Year's Day. I've been out in the garden. I've done about 3 sessions of brush cutting and then just took out an hour and a half of mowing. So the property's looking okay. It's pretty rough through the mow. Where the shed is being built, there's a lot of dirt that got moved around when it was very wet. It was really too wet to do it, but we pushed ahead, and what's happened is that the excavator was unable to lock it down into a flat surface, so it's really bumpy. I think it's breaking the mower. It's really not good, but that's all by the by. What I wanted to talk about today is your practice software. Now, you're probably using Best Practice or Medical Director or perhaps Genie or one of the lesser known ones. And these are very good software. Generally they are, particularly Best Practice. I've had the opportunity to sample them all, well, not all of them, but at least Genie, Best Practice and Medical Director. And Best Practice clearly wins, hands down. It's fast, it's easy, it makes great notes, good documentation of the actual experience, what went on. So what could possibly be going on when I'm saying, hey, your practice software is putting you at risk? Well, what I want you to consider is that the medicine that we are doing has changed. That Best Practice and Medical Director and Genie and all of them really are an extension of the notes, the handwritten notes that before we had computers we would use to document what went on. And the medicine back then was very much acute medicine. It might be largely seen in the emergency department now. Not what we're actually seeing. Number one, we see a lot of chronic health, and number two, a lot of preventative health. Now, both of those have a problem in the fact that often there is stuff that needs to be done in 6 weeks, in 3 months' time, perhaps 4 months, 6 months, once a year, once every 2 years. And when that gets documented in a clinical note, and then 4 months later that time rucks around, then you better have put in a recall or a reminder to remind yourself that that got done. Now, you might argue and say, hey, the plans should do this, but that means you have to be meticulous at looking at the plans every time you open up a patient. Now, if they've come in and they're sick and they've got a cold and they've got X, Y, Z going on, perhaps they're just in for a script repeat, they want their blood pressure checked, but you don't check those. You don't check the plan, or you don't go back to try and find out where the plan for what should be done at this time in reality. This is a problem. This means it gets missed. And then the next time the opportunity to review their care comes up, perhaps it's at a 3-monthly review or it's at a yearly review, or they haven't shown up for a while, and you're like, oh, wow, we really should check out what should be done. And it might get planned again. But again, if you don't set those reminders, then this is actually a worse situation. You've documented what should be done, but there's no reminders. Now, what this actually has a whole lot more in common with is not 80s and 70s medicine where we're dealing with acute things, but this has a lot more to do with project management. Now, much like business skills, you probably got a grand total of 0 training, as I did, in project management. And yet this skill set is becoming more and more critical. Think about it. A patient that comes in and has to have things done at 3 months, at 4 months, at 6 months, at 9 months, 10 months, and 12 months is not dissimilar to a year-long project of getting things done. Perhaps we can think about it in terms of a rental, a property that has to be maintained, and at 3 months something has to be done, at 6 months something has to be done, at 9 months something else has to be done, and at 12 months the year completes, and we look at the things that got done. And how this gets done in, for instance, property management is with dedicated software. And yet our software is not designed for this at all. It might be you can hack it. There's no doubt you can hack it if you are meticulous. But there's no safe way where you can say, okay, I can pull up and know exactly what needs to be done for this patient. Let alone actually even creating all of those plans for the various diseases and for the various preventative health checks. Like, that in itself is not particularly well done, at least in my experience. Perhaps you've got some other way. You're just like, oh, didn't you know there was this way that you can do it? And it just brings them up, and suddenly your whole year for that patient is planned out, and it pops up every time so you can check it. Now, I'm not suggesting that we go and remake best practice. I think that that is a huge undertaking, but there has to be a shift in terms of how we think about preventative health, how we think about chronic disease, when there is the requirements that things get done in the future. And ideally, this would be held in the cloud, where all of the people interacting with that patient, the specialists, the GP, the allied healthcare team, the emergency departments even, could actually have a look and go, oh wow, okay, this is the plan for this patient. My health record is far inadequate for this. That would be the desirable outcome. But even if we can just get to thinking about, okay, how are we going to do it so that we can see what needs to be done, we can make sure that it gets done, and that it gets documented that it was done. This will significantly make a difference for preventative health. It will mean that chronic disease is managed better, and the tools that we have right now are inadequate, in my judgment, for this task. All right, so become more aware of it. Right now, you got to hack it. Make sure you put in your reminders for what needs to be done, and that you check the plans. Check where you're documenting what needs to be done each time you open up a patient. All right, until we get a better solution, that's all I got for you tonight. Hope you're having a great day on this very first day of 2023. Look forward to seeing you on another episode very soon.